Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is Jewish youth and the Jewish future. I have much to say and much to write about this topic. While many leaders spout doom and gloom about our future, I do not, and this is why. Despite the dire predictions about the future of the Jewish state, and there are many, and the dire predictions about the future of Judaism, and there are many, I know that the future will be bright. I know that our future will be infused with creativity and dynamism. I know that our future leaders will be moral, righteous, courageous visionaries. I know that we need not fear for our future. I know that because I know the youth of today. October 7th brought out the worst in our enemies, and it brought out the best in us. When the call to arms went out, when the pleas for help were heard, when the world seemed to be collapsing all around us, young Israelis leaped into the fray, eyes opened and hearts pounding. They responded to the needs of our nation, demonstrating a drive and dedication way beyond their years, a drive many did not know they had. Israel became a nation of young heroes, military heroes, volunteer heroes, heroes at war, and heroes maintaining the home front. A generation of young men and women who will lead us into the future. In a horrific time of need, Israel's young generation rose to the challenge, and they are continuing to rise far beyond that challenge today. Israeli youth demonstrated that they are not just like all the other youth in the Western world today. They occupy a real world, the real world, not an artificial video or social media world of their contemporaries. They joined the ranks of youth who have, historically, been the force behind movements that have changed the world, made the world a better place. Youth movements have transformed the world. The anti-war movement against the Vietnam War was a youth movement. The sexual revolution was begun by youth.
That's fine. I know him all pretty well.
The rock and roll revolution that transformed music and culture was spurred by youth.
Out in the light, better leave her behind. With the kids are alright.
Make love, not war.
The kids are alright.
It was all about young people. Organized youth have power. Hitler's Nazi Germany understood that. They understood that power all too well. They utilized the youth of Germany and called it the Hitler Youth. They indoctrinated and motivated young Germans to the mission of Hitler's Germany, and Hitler Youth became the breeding ground for leadership in Hitler's Germany. The Zionist movement was created by Jewish youth. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was organized by young Jews, young men and women who were willing to give up their lives to die in the sewers of Warsaw in the hope of making a statement and even possibly saving Jewish lives. It was Zionist youth who in Europe rejected the lives of their parents and left Europe. They built the settlements, drained the swamps, and established towns and cities. Young Jews organized Zionist groups in Europe and in the United States. They taught themselves Hebrew and created practice farms, experimental farms, to learn agriculture, and then went off to Palestine. And years later, it was young Jews behind the Iron Curtain who, with smuggled books, taught other young Jews to read and write Hebrew and how to become Jewish Jews. Theodor Herzl, the father of modern political Zionism, died in July 1904 at the tender age of 44. In 1894, at the relatively young age of 34, he witnessed the Dreyfus trial. That experience, that scandal, that libel transformed his life. And as a young man, Herzl began his revolution to create a Jewish state. The old man of Zionism was named Aaron David Gordon. Everyone called him Aleph David, or A.D. Gordon. The elder statesman of labor Zionism, A.D. Gordon, left Europe to come to Palestine at the age of 48, hardly an old man. Gordon firmly believed that working the land was a spiritual, transformative experience. He believed that the Jewish people in the diaspora had been removed from the world of toil and labor, from working their land. Labor, work, to Aleph Dalet Gordon, was not Marxism. It was a religious experience. While not religious himself, he came from a religious environment, he formed a very good relationship with Rav Kook, one of the fathers of religious Zionism. Gordon rejected socialism, Marxism. Instead, once living in Palestine, he created a youth movement called Hapoel Hatzair, the Young Worker. His movement was a break from Ber Borachov and Nachum Sirkin and their Poalei Tzion, because they were ideological. They were socialist Marxists, not Gordon. For Gordon, the primary objective was the work and working the land, the religious experience. It would transform the Jewish people and create a society, an organic, healthy, happy, spiritual society. For Aleph Dalet Gordon, for A.D. Gordon, it was not about statehood. He believed in an organic community based on family, on values, on labor. And for A.D. Gordon, it was not about statehood. After his death, young people created a youth movement called Gordonia, promoting his philosophy of Hebrew labor. They were dedicated to learning agriculture and Hebrew, and then coming to Palestine. The movement spoke to young Jewish people, especially those who did not embrace Marxist ideals, like those in Hashomer HaTzair. Gordonia even had a presence in the United States, especially in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. They created a summer camp on the banks of the South River, just outside of Annapolis, Maryland. Eventually, Gordonia merged with Habonim, and they then merged with Dror later on. The youth of Israel today are walking in the footsteps of the founders of Zionism, conscripted soldiers and reservists, elementary and high school students, volunteering to keep agricultural communities alive, to teach displaced children living in hotels. They are showing a verve of dynamism that will keep the Jewish spirit and the Jewish nation alive. Their presence makes a difference in the world. Because of them, I have great faith in the future of the state of Israel and the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, Am Yisrael. Coming up next, points of view. Today I want to just talk about one piece. It's an editorial, not a column, an editorial from the Jerusalem Post. This week, throughout the pro-Israel media, a major theme has been, why was the world so critical of Israel's targeting two terrorists, one from Hezbollah, a Hezbollah commander in Lebanon, and one of Hamas, a leader who was in Tehran. The Israeli press across the political spectrum is stunned that Western thinkers and leaders are defending these terrorists. I've selected the best piece, this editorial from the Jerusalem Post. Remember, it's an editorial, and an editorial is unsigned and written by the editorial board. It is the point of view of the paper. This editorial was posted on August 4th, 2023. It's entitled, "The West's Criticism of Hania's Assassination Misses the Anti-Terror Point." Editorial, subtitled, "Western leaders' condemnation of Ismail Hania's assassination overlooks its critical role in the fight against terrorism. Rather than criticizing Israel, the West should support it." The editorial clearly explains how warped the Western world mindset is when it comes to condemning terror. This is how the editorial begins. The assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniya in Tehran has provoked a wave of international condemnation, with numerous world leaders and organizations decrying the act as a dangerous escalation. However, the reaction fails to acknowledge the significance of this action in the broader context of global security and the ongoing war on terror. Instead of criticizing Israel, the Western world should commend this decisive move, which reinforces the commitment to combating terrorism. Haniya, for more than 7 years, the prominent leader of Hamas, a recognized terrorist organization, had long history of orchestrating violence and terror against civilians. Now, as the editorial continues, it calls out all those who condemn the assassination of a terrorist leader like Ismail Haniya. The editors write, Several Western countries, including the US, Egypt, and Qatar, have expressed concerns that Khania's assassination undermines the ongoing peace negotiations and escalates regional tensions. For instance, Egypt's foreign ministry labeled the killing as a, quote, dangerous escalation, unquote, while Qatar condemned it as a, quote, heinous crime, unquote, and, quote, a blatant violation of international humanitarian law, unquote. These reactions, however, ignore the broader implications of allowing a terrorist leader to operate with impunity. It is essential to recognize that Israel's actions are not acts of aggression, but of self-defense. Eliminating Khania sends a solid message to terrorist organizations worldwide. Their leaders are not beyond reach. This act demonstrates Israel's advanced intelligence capabilities and its unwavering commitment to neutralizing threats to its national security and the safety of its citizens. The international community must consider who aligns themselves with individuals like Khania. Those who see him as a friend or ally are, in effect, partners in terror. Now the editorial concludes, and this is very important because the message is clear. They write, critics argue that Khania's assassination could derail peace talks and provoke further violence. While it is true that any significant military action can have immediate repercussions, the long-term benefits of removing a key critical figure outweigh the temporary instability. Death disrupts Hamas's leadership structure and diminishes its operational capabilities, thereby weakening the organization's ability to carry out future acts. Furthermore, this assassination aligns with the broader goal effort to combat terrorism. The West, particularly nations like the United States, which have been victims of terror, should understand the necessity of such actions. The fight against terror requires a united front and the willingness to take decisive measures against those who perpetrate violence and chaos. Israel's alleged targeted killing of Ismail Haniyeh should be viewed not as a provocative act, but as a necessary step to fight against terrorism. It truly boggles the mind how people could end up on the wrong side of this argument. How could anyone be supporting Hamas? This entire situation makes no sense. Coming up, commentary through cartoons where pictures tell the story. I want to show you 7 cartoons and memes today. Sorry, no headlines today. This week it was harder to find cartoons about the subjects we analyze. But I searched and I found some, and I think some extremely insightful ones, some very critical of Israel, and some much more supportive. You'll see in a moment. This first cartoon depicts Bibi caught in a series of traps, hunting traps. Lebanon, Iran, and Gaza. According to this cartoonist, things are not looking good for Israel. Next up is Bibi again. This time, the Israeli Prime Minister is hitting a bee's nest, which symbolizes the Middle East. Bibi is the designated hitter, and his bats are Lebanon and Iran. According to the cartoonist, Netanyahu is pleased with the situation. The caption actually reads, Bibi keeps the conflict going to stay in power. That's actually the title of the cartoon. Now a horrific cartoon called Israel's Assassination Policy. Israel is shooting at innumerable stand-up targets. It is as if the cartoonist is claiming that Israelis are just wantonly killing people. How wrong and how awful. How awful. Now we see a classic newsroom. A writer approaches her editor and says, the Gaza Health Ministry reports 2 different casualty counts that contradict each other. Which set should I use, she asks. The editor responds, whichever makes Israel look more monstrous. How true that seems to be. This next cartoon is entitled Palestinian Cycle, and it reads, cry, start war, lose. Interesting. Now we have a meme. The caption reads, sometimes the Lord makes the memes. An UN soldier is standing in front of a building. His helmet with the UN letters, UN on it, are perfectly aligned with the words written on the building, involved in peace. It turns into uninvolved in peace, which is exactly what many people believe the UN's involvement is. And finally, a cartoon entitled US Israel policy, we see a person wearing glasses that have both a blue and red Star of David. This cartoonist is telling us that both Democrats and Republicans have a pro-Israel policy. That is very important to remember. In a moment, more of my own perspective and a few predictions. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan flew to Doha, Qatar's capital city, to attend the funeral of Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas's political bureau, who was killed in Tehran. Formal attendance of such a senior representative of the Turkish government sends out a serious message. The foreign minister's attendance at Haniyeh's funeral is a major statement of Turkey in support of Hamas and terror. It is also an anti-Israel and an anti-US move. More on Turkey. Turkey reinforced that message when Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan declared that Friday, August 2nd, would be a national mourning day over the killing of the head of Hamas's political bureau, Ismail Haniyeh. A statement released on X reads, "In order to show our support for the Palestinian cause and our solidarity with our Palestinian siblings, a day of national mourning was declared due to Hamas's political bureau chairman Ismail Haniyeh's martyrdom." Staying on the subject of Turkey, Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan, the G is pronounced as a W, by the way, held a phone conversation with US President Joe Biden and suggested that Israel is trying to spread the Gaza war to the wider region and did not want a ceasefire. According to the office of the Turkish president, Biden thanked Erdogan for his efforts regarding an East-West prisoner swap in Ankara. In an official statement from the Turkish president, Erdogan also told Biden that the Israeli government had shown its unwillingness to reach a ceasefire in Gaza, quote, at every step, unquote, and that the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's address to the US Congress had prompted, get this, quote, a deep disappointment, unquote, in Turkey and the world. Erdogan also said that the killing of Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the Palestinian military group Hamas's political bureau, had dealt a heavy blow to ceasefire efforts. It said Erdogan also vowed to continue working to improve ties between the NATO allies. Now to the Paris Olympics. Israeli judoka Peter Palchik won the bronze medal in the up to 100 kilo category. The judoka received 2 penalties that at first led to a loss and a dismissal from the match, but after an appeal, he won. More good news. While Inbar Lanier lost in the judo final to her Italian rival, Alice Belandi, she finished in second place with a silver medal in the Olympics. It was Israel's second medal in the Olympics in Paris this season. Another silver medal went to judoka Raz Hershko, who won the silver medal in the over 78 kilo category after losing to Brazilian Beatriz Sousa in the final. Next week, we'll do a much longer roundup of Israel's wins in the Paris Summer Olympics. Each win is a badge of pride and honor for all Israelis and for Jews and lovers of Israel around the world. Israel's National Security Council issued a warning to Israelis advising them to exercise extra caution when traveling abroad. They warned that Iran or its allies, Hamas and Hezbollah, could target Israelis or Jewish institutions and Jewish communities outside the country. The warning in a statement issued through the Prime Minister's office came amid growing fears in Israel of an attack by its enemies in retaliation for the assassination of senior leaders from Hezbollah and Hamas. Lebanese news outlet Junubia, known for opposing Hezbollah, cited sources saying that the terror group's leadership is certain that agents working for Israel have infiltrated the ranks and delivered information to Jerusalem. Their worries come following the assassination of the terror organization's senior commander, Fa'ud Shukr, last week in Lebanon. A senior judicial official said that the general prosecutor instructed an investigation into the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh last week and to arrest anyone who acted recklessly. Amin Hussein Rahimimi said that there was no doubt that Israel was responsible. Quote, but we are investigating whether it was done directly or with the help of spies, unquote. According to Saudi media reports, a report on the investigation's findings would be submitted to a national security meeting in the Iranian parliament by Iran's senior security officials. Meanwhile, GPS apps in Central Europe indicated that users using Waze were not in Israel but in downtown Beirut the other day, which raised concerns of an imminent attack from Iran. A similar GPS malfunction happened in April, just before Iran launched 300 missiles and drones at Israel. Why does this happen? Because many rockets and drones use GPS. So Israel shuts down or reconfigures the GPS, confusing the incoming attackers. Sometimes it's a real attack, and sometimes it's a drill. Israelis should expect this to happen more and more often. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquante piece of information. The musical piece and curated videos and stills you're about to see and hear was written and performed by Uriel Zorayev. Uriel posted this work on YouTube on October 17th, a mere 10 days after the horrific massacre. Since then, it's been posted in different accounts and has gone viral. I count at least 2.5 million views of this very song and video. The song is entitled One Nation. Here are the lyrics in translation. Dear people of Israel, this is a song for all of us. When we sat together to write this song, we were speechless. What are you writing about? About the horrors we went through? Everyone knows what we went through, the many pure souls we lost. We believe with all our hearts that our great strength is the people of Israel. This song is meant to restore hope and remind us that no one can defeat us when we are united. We will get through this and we will win together. Am Yisrael Chai. To that I say, Amen.
ללא מילים, ללא תחושות, אין מנוס ממחשבות. יש פה קרע לא מוסבר, איך שרים כשלב נשבר. אני פה מול החדשות, לא מעכל את הדמעות. אם אנחנו עם נבחר, איך נחרד גורל אכזר. ואין תשובות, ערפל כבד נחת עכשיו. למי פונים? הנשמה פצועה בקרב. שמע ישראל אומרים יחדיו. עוד לא עבדה תקוותנו להיות חופשי בארצנו. שמע ישראל, כולנו עם אחד. חופשי בארצנו, שמע ישראל, כולנו עם אחד. אי אפשר לתאר במילים את הזוועות, הנפש פצועה, רק רצינו לרקוד, לא רוצים עוד לראות אמהות שבוכות. מה כבר ביקשנו בשקט לחיות? אין לנו ארץ אחרת. גם אם האדמה פה בוערת, אז די לפילוג, די לשנאה, מסתכלים עלינו, מנצלים את החולשה, זה הזמן לאהוב, להפיץ את התקווה, להרים את הראש, לחייך חזרה, כי כולנו אחים לא רק במלחמה. עם ישראל זה אותה משפחה, אנחנו ננצח, אין פה ספקות, בהיסטוריה ניצחנו בכל הקרבות, כל השונאים יאללה ביי. עם ישראל חי, עם אחד,
And once again, I say Amen. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.